All right. So YouTube is, let's just say, rather new to who I am and what I've done over the last several years. But I've been actually a very successful divine healer uh, since 2017, 2018. That's when I started. So I kind of want to tell my story of how I got started in healing and even some of my healing stories. To this date, I've done somewhere in the tens of thousands. Um, I did most of them while I was still in high school. So it started, let's just say my journey started in 2017. So sometime after that, between 2017, 2019, well, really 2017, 2018, I would like, I really was going for that. I got inspired. I was reading books like Robert Liardon's God's Generals. I was reading that like you read the Bible. Like I was getting everything I could out of that book. And it stretched me because it was full of modern people walking in the supernatural. So that book really inspired me. The series itself. So I would pray all the time. I was spending time, hours at a time, with just sitting in the presence of God. And I was like, teach me how to heal. I want to heal. I want to heal. I want to do what they were doing. The power of testimony is to inspire the masses because one person succeeded. That's the benefit of a testimony. I realized that these people were recent, they were modern, and they were legit. People like Catherine Kuhlman and A. Allen, they still have videos of them. That's how recent they were. And of course, there's a lot more modern people. Shoot, I'm one of them now. But I would just saturate myself. I remember I made playlists on YouTube of like miracle montages of them healing different people. But what finally got me to really step into healing was Todd White, because he just was just going around and praying for regular people in regular environments. And it triggered something in me that said pretty much it doesn't have to be a big event. People are hurting all around you. People need help all around you. You don't have to set a space. You just have to be a resource wherever you're going to go. You're already going to be there. Why not help people while you're there? So I remember I stepped out and I was like, you know what? I've never even tried to heal the sick. Because mind you, I grew up black. I grew up Baptist. They weren't healing the sick. They weren't casting out demons. Uh, they weren't prophesying. That wasn't really happening. So I had to learn this stuff on my own. In fact, I was highly discouraged from going towards the things of the spirit, for even desiring the supernatural. Not by my pastor, but some of the other people in the church. But I remember I finally stepped out. I got enough courage to try, and I remember someone had uh, I don't remember. It was either a headache or they had like a stuffy nose or something. And I asked if I could pray for them. And I just remembered in that moment, I made the decision to be a solution. And when I touched them, they said, whoa, it just cleared up. And I was like, oh, it's that easy. So that was how I got started. I started off doing simple things, headaches and sniffles, slight colds, and then I started moving into more severe things because I was remembering to use the science of testimony. If one thing is working, the next thing should work too. Remember not to overthink this stuff. So, by the end of my first year of doing healings, I'd already done several cancer healings where the cancer would disappear instantly. Now, I'm doing all of these as a high schooler. Most of the people I was healing were other high schoolers. That was because that's where I was most of the time. People had back pain, people had knee pain, people had a cold, people had whatever they had, I used them as exercise, as practice. I would just ask if they let me, I did. If not, oh well. Eventually, it became expected. They knew that whatever I was doing worked. I started to function in word of knowledge. I'd pass people up and I'm like, hey, your foot's hurting. They're like, how'd you know that? I'm like, I felt it in the spirit. Can I pray for you? And they'd let me and they'd get healed. Like, I remember one story, it was with the security guard at my high school where I was a office aide. So I was walking the halls, and I remember I passed him, and I would do these things when I was really learning in that time that I would call scavenger hunts, where I would get an impression on a certain part of my body, and I knew that this was signaling that someone else had this pain or this issue. So I was walking past him. I remember I was walking around, and I remember I got near the security guard, and my foot got extremely hot. It was already warm, but then it got super hot, and I was like, "This is who I'm talking. This is who this is for." So I stopped and I asked him, "Hey, is your foot okay? Your foot hurting?" And he's like, "What? Oh no!" And then he walked off. So about a week went on, and I remember every time I'd see him, he'd look at me funny. So in my head, I'm going, "Oh no, I look like a weirdo to him. This is embarrassing." But I just conceded, you know. I was just like, you know what? Maybe I missed it. Oh well. So then the next week comes, and he sees me again while I'm during my office aid period, and he stops me and he says, "How did you know my foot was hurting that day?" And one, I felt relieved. Two, I felt excited because I'm like, oh, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. And I was like, I felt it in the spirit. And he was like, that's amazing. Because I wasn't, he was like, that was my initial response to tell you no. But right after you walked away, I realized what you were talking about. And I was actually surprised. He's like, I couldn't even speak about it for about a week. I was like, oh, so that's why you was looking at me funny. He was like, I didn't even know how to approach you about that. But even then, I thought I'd gotten it wrong, and I was right. Um, let's see. One of the craziest healings that I've done. Let's see. There was a lady. I was doing house meetings, and there was a lady who had, I believe it was rheumatoid arthritis. So she was a little twisted. And I remember I just released power over her, and everyone in the room got to watch her untwist in front of us. I had several healings for people who had walkers and canes and crutches. That was standard because I was around a lot of old people. So I was in the habit of taking their crutches from them because part of it's psychological in that they use these things because they think they might use them, and because that's where their consciousness is, their body matches the way that they think. So oftentimes, if you're able to, well, let's just say sometimes, if you're able to show someone that they don't need their crutch, whether that crutch be a cane, a crutch, or it's a walker or something like that, they'll step into a consciousness that allows them to really flow, allows them to be healthy. Because there's always that fear that people have, specifically Christians. I don't get this from any other demographic where it's like, oh, this healing is here now. I feel good now, but it might come back. When I was in the military healing atheists, they never once said, is this going to come back? They said, whoa, this is gone. I don't have to worry about it. Speaking of the military, let me tell you a military story. So while I was on my way out of the military, I remember I had been having visions. Like my whole time going in, I had a vision of me healing someone's knee. And up until this point, I'd healed a few different things. Like in boot camp, the person who was bunked next to me was an atheist. But word of knowledge again, I knew that his ankle was hurting him. And I asked him if I could pray for it. He was like, but I don't believe. I said, I don't need you to believe. I just wanted to know if I could do what I need to do. You want me to fix your ankle? Because I can. And he was like, well, how do I know it's not placebo? I was like, you don't believe that this even works. So can't be placebo. I'm not convincing you to do a thing. So he's like, all right. And then I put my hand near his ankle, and it let out this audible pop, and then all the pain and discomfort was gone from it. So I had been doing healings all throughout my time in the military. So when it got time for me to leave, I'd still had this one vision of me healing a person's knee, and I'd done just about everything but that. So I remember I was just thinking about, man, I'm getting ready to go home, and I've done everything but the knee that I saw myself doing. I'm like, was that just figurative of the fact that I was going to be doing a lot of healings? But I'm like, that's weird that I've done everything but the knee. And then just as I was thinking that, a guy was bunking next to me, and he came in on his crutches, and his knee was wrapped up. And I was like, here's my knee, finally. So me and him got to talking eventually, and he was Catholic. And he found out what I did, and I asked him if I could pray for him, if I could heal his leg. And he let me. I remember I put my hands over his leg, and his whole body got hot. And I was like, now move it around. And he was like, all the pain is gone. I was hurting just to be alive a moment ago. So here's the funny part about that story. It's funny, but not funny. He got perfectly fine. He didn't need his crutches. He went to the showers, went in, slipped and fell, and retwisted the same knee. And I was like, dang. So the last day that I was in the military, he asked me, he was like, wait, before you go, can you fix my knee? I was like, you got to watch your step now, because I'm not going to be here. He was like, you got it. And I remember I released power over him, and all the pain in his knees left. He was like, man, how do you do that so well? And I was like, it too much for me to cover, but it's easy. So those are some of my healing stories. But it was really just me prioritizing the testimony. When it came time for me to want to do things that I wasn't familiar with, I surrounded myself in the success stories of that very thing. I don't want to hear it from the losers. I don't want to hear it from the people who have no track record with it. I don't want to hear anything from people who've never tried, people who have a philosophy. I'll tell you this for free. If you want to kill people, the greatest prayer that you can pray is, Father God, if it be your will, I ask that you heal, but if not, give us the strength to move on. Bless the families that their hearts might not be troubled. You know, that's how you kill people. I learned that healing, for the most part, is choosing to be the answer to the problem, choosing to be the solution, with intent going, this problem ends when I get involved. And just for fun, I'll tell y'all about the last dead raising that I did. I've done 9 dead raisings in total. I failed about 6, but I've succeeded 9 times. So let me tell you about the last one that I did. This was, I want to say this was 2020, early 2020. Yeah. So our neighbors had might have been 2021. I'm not sure. But our neighbors had a dog. And the dog would come out and see us every time. Well, come out and see me specifically every time that I would come outside. Like, she just knew when it was me, and she'd come running from down the street. Beautiful dog. And I remember one day I stepped outside, and she was knocked out dead in our ditch. She'd got hit by a car. Now, I've grown up with dogs my whole life. I know a dead dog body when I see one. You know, the fly is already on it. I went over and peeked at her. She was done. Like, she wasn't asleep or none of that. I know a dead dog. But funny reason I was even outside, I was in the middle of a fast. And, okay, so about fasting, right? This time you might want to call this a fast, you might not, but I was calling it a fast at this time. But I was on my way to get me a milkshake. You know, not the best for a fast, right? Right. So I remember I had gotten my car. After I saw her, I went and got in the car. And I went to the stop sign and I got convicted a little bit because I'm like, I stand for life and there's a dead dog in my ditch. Okay, I should do something about that. So I just spoke the word. I was just like, all right, be up and be back when I get back. And then I left. I went to the restaurant, got me a milkshake, came back. When I pulled back in the driveway, the body was gone. And immediately, my first thought was, oh, they might have thrown her in the trash, or, the city might have come pick her up. I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't all too confident that I could do that. Well, I go up the stairs, and I put the key in the door, and I see the dog run across the street. I'm like, oh, she's back. It worked. So that was actually the last dead raising I did. It was a dog. But yeah, she wasn't asleep. She was knocked out dead in my ditch. And in that moment, I just spoke life to her and gave her a command, and she obeyed. So yeah, those are some healing stories. Those are some life stories. Now, mind you, I do have a healer class coming up soon. If you're interested in that, go to my website, caveofmystery.org. From there, it'll take you to my launch page for my events and my courses. And you'll see I have my healers class. It's 8 weeks. Going to be teaching y'all everything that I know. At least that's necessary for you to step into healing. If you've never healed anyone before, this is a great class for you. If you have some success, it's a great class for you. Because I don't want to just get you a result. I want to give you a lifestyle that produces consistent results. I'm giving you the mentality, I'm giving you the ways, I'm giving you the sciences of how I was able to accumulate tens of thousands of healings in just a few years. So with that being said, y'all be blessed. Again, check out my website, caveofmystery.org. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.